Hello, and welcome to Four Records with Karina and Forrest. This week we talk with Dying Scene editor Jason Stone about his four records.
I'm
Um,
I'm sort of curious to hear your thoughts on them as we go too, especially if there's things that you hadn't heard before. But
the Born in the USA was very much like when I listened to the Beach Boys. My friend made me listen to the Beach Boys, and I knew more of
mm-hmm,
these songs than I thought. And even when
mm-hmm.
Karina had me listen to Rumors, I knew
Oh,
more of
right.
the
Yeah, yeah,
songs
yeah.
than I knew, and that was the same on this. My son uses my Spotify account, so every once in a while I won't know he's on it, and I'll go to like listen to something,
Yeah.
and he'll be like, "Hey, I like this. Put this on my mix," like
Oh,
all the
that's cool.
time. And that was "I'm on Fire." He was
Oh,
like, "Oh, I like
interesting.
this song. Put it on my mix." So like every once in
Interesting.
a it's this vast. He's got like 500 something songs on there, and they're
Oh,
all
that's
just
awesome.
wildly different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. How old is he?
13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the perfect age for that stuff.
Yeah. So where are they? Here they are. Okay. So how I'm assuming that was something that was played a lot in your house. Born in the
Yeah.
USA.
Yeah. So in attacking this project, I kind of went by, so I was born at the very end of 1979. So basically, like, I turned 10 in 89, turned 20 in 99, et cetera, et cetera. So I went by like decades. So
Yeah.
for me, the album of the 1980s, far and away, is Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA.
Okay.
So that album was played a ton at my house. I mean, Springsteen in general was played a ton at my house, but that album came out the summer that I turned five, like the summer before I turned five. And yeah, like my parents went to New Jersey at least once to see Springsteen on that tour because my aunt and uncle were living in East Rutherford or East Brunswick or somewhere down there. Um, and my aunt and uncle were huge Springsteen fans too.
Yeah.
So I know my parents went to that tour at least once in New Jersey. In my brain, they went twice, but I don't remember, and I should have asked them before doing this. But so that album, like more than anything, like signifies the music of my childhood. I don't think it's anywhere near Springsteen's best record, like by far. Um, Although it was interesting to go back and listen to it again for this project. Like I knew straight from when you told me that you and Karina were doing this project, I was
Mhm.
like, well, if I ever do this, Born in the USA is obviously going to be like the album of the 80s.
Yeah.
Like I know that my dad had the record, but I know that both of my parents had like tapes in both of their cars too, because it was like cassette tape time, right? So
Yeah.
um yeah, all the time we listened to that record. And it's funny to listen back to it now because the two songs, maybe even the three songs that everybody knows from that record, Born in the USA, Dancing in the Dark, and Glory Days, are a little bit cringy. Like I can't really listen to Born in the USA now. I can't really listen to Dancing in the Dark now because the synthesizer is just like it's too much. I don't like it. And like you could do a whole like college level semester long class about Born in the USA the song,
Yeah.
and how like wildly misinterpreted that's been forever. And I think it's misinterpreted because of the synthesizer. Like that synthesizer is just like it's brutal, and I don't think it aged well. But it gave the song like a I don't know, like a positive vibe to it, and that's not a positive song at all.
No. And I think that's and maybe I'm reading these wrong, 'cause I think that's the whole thing. It's like I don't know why it doesn't stick, and I don't think they're bad songs.
Yeah,
Like it just doesn't stick with me. I liked Cover Me a lot, actually.
Cover
I
Me,
hadn't
I
heard
think
that
is a great
before.
song. Yeah, I think that's a great song. I think that guitar riff, that solo is dynamite. Um, yeah, there like I feel like most of the songs on the record, other than Born in the USA, Dance in the Dark, I actually like Glory Days, and I think my dad thinks it's like the worst Springsteen song. I have to double check that with him. But I actually really like that song. I think that people get that song like I think that people don't like that song because the video is so bad. Like
Which one is
I
that one?
don't.
I'm sure I've seen it.
So it starts out with this like montage of Springsteen as a pitcher, and he's wearing
Yes.
like jeans and high tops and a t-shirt, and he's kind of pitching. And like before the song even starts, it's just him like throwing baseballs at a piece of plywood or something to practice pitching. And like there's other spots in the video where he's kind of acting, and it's like that's not what you do, dude. like
That's
I get it was the mid 80s, like it was like the real like
did he go to
kick
like
off
what
of the video area, but oh man, it's bad.
was it like the Friday 13th School of Acting?
Yeah, yeah. Like and they kind of tried to make him look brooding at one point, but whatever. But lyrically, I think that song is actually really good, and I think it's pretty poignant.
I've tried listening to Nebraska, which I because everybody says that's a good album from him, and I think
Mm.
they're recorded like months apart, aren't they? Or not,
Um,
maybe not too far apart.
oh, we could go down that rabbit hole if you want to. So, most of the music for what became Nebraska and most of the music for Born in the USA were written roughly at the same time.
Okay.
In like a bedroom at a little house in the middle of the woods in Colts Neck, New Jersey, that Bruce Springsteen was renting. Yes, I have been by the house because I'm like a total Springsteen dork. And they're written around the same time. And the idea behind Nebraska was like it was going to be a full band record, but they couldn't do it. Like the songs on that record didn't translate the same way because of the really, really rudimentary way that record was, that what became that record was recorded. And essentially, like just demos in a bedroom in that place in New Jersey run through a waterlogged boombox is Nebraska. Like they didn't go back. They tried to go back into the studio and record it with the band, with just Bruce solo, and like they couldn't do it. Like it didn't have the same thing. Most of the songs for Born in the USA were written like same sessions, essentially, same bedroom in New Jersey, with the exception of think the last song written for Born in the USA was Bobby Jean, and I have this vivid memory of being I had to be 5, maybe 6, and listening to that song, and I think it was the first time that I ever like heard a song, and it made me sad. Like that's a song like it sounds like a breakup song between boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife or something. It's not. It's large, like he's never really talked about it, but it's largely accepted as canon that song is about Stephen Van Zandt leaving the E Street Band. And like it was sort of like not a middle of the night decision, but it was sort of like he just decided he was leaving the band at the end of the album recording cycle. And so it's like that song is kind of written from that perspective, like my best friend is leaving. He didn't tell me he was leaving, and like what the f, basically.
Yeah.
And so like I remember being a little kid and listening to that song and it making me sad, like in a good, not sad in a bad way that I didn't want to listen to it, but sad in a good way, like moved by that song. And like other songs that like Born in the USA, when you're a little kid, it's kind of like a rah rah song, like Dancing in the Dark is kind of a rah rah song. But I remember thinking that song was sad. And then listening back to it in the context of the album, I kind of got that again like this past week, and like that sort of hair on the back of your neck thing. And I think that like this is a theme that will continue later on in this episode, like with the choices that I made. But like I found I was really drawn to that song even as a little kid for that feeling, and I feel like that's maybe a weird thing for a kid to recognize in a song and to understand. Like obviously I didn't understand the context of the song, I just knew it was really sad.
Yeah. Um, I'm not going into what the third and fourth album records are. Do you feel like Springsteen was influential on those records?
1,000%.
1,000%. Okay,
Like,
that's what I picked up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that like if I'm honest about it, like, and so I do actually have notes about this related to the second album, but it definitely makes like bleeds into the third and fourth albums, and it bleeds into the albums that didn't make the list. Like there's I racked my brain pretty hard about how much I should push you that we should only have 4 albums, because I was like,
Yeah.
it was like total Sophie's Choice thing. I'm like, how the do I not have blah blah
That's
blah?
that's what
It's
I think is
hard.
interesting about this. Is like you have to and I don't mind deviating as the ones that I'm fine if you're like this one should have been here too.
Oh, I will definitely honorable mention as we go, I think.
Yeah,
But there is no honorable mention for albums that came out in the 80s and that I uh listened to in the 80s. Like we could go back at some point and I could say, oh well, like I really like Born to Run and but I didn't fall in love with Born to Run at a particular time, and that album came out before I was born. I really like The Clash's London Calling, but that album came out before I was born, and like
yeah,
I didn't fall in love with it at a particular time. So I tried to stay with like albums that I knew when they came out and listened to them when they came out, and like sort of formed uh, all of this. They kind of
yeah.
formed, like at some level, kind of formed the reason that I got involved with Dying Scene in the first place 15 years ago, whatever it was. But
Mhm.
like the storytelling in Springsteen absolutely is a very common theme in the records that follow and the records that didn't quite make the list.
Like Springsteen in general, like out this way, like I'm in California.
Mm. I'm
It's
just outside Boston. Yeah.
outside Boston. Yeah, I'm always like it's not Boston, it's
Yeah.
outside Boston. But
If
like,
if you're from California, I'm from Boston. If you're from Massachusetts, I'm from Wakefield.
gotcha,
Like
gotcha.
I'm 10 miles outside of Boston, but like I don't know, 10 miles outside of Los Angeles is still Los Angeles. So
Yeah, Rochester
so
was
it's
like that. There's like 4 or 5 areas around Rochester. It's like
yeah,
Pittsfield, and I forgot what the other ones were. And
yeah,
if you don't live in Rochester, you live in like one of those areas around it.
right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, I'm East Coast. But yeah, and maybe that's part of why Springsteen is so like has been such a thread in my life forever. A, because my parents listened to it, but like blue collar, working class, Northeast America, like thing, right?
yeah.
That's where I grew up. I didn't grow up in New Jersey, obviously, but had family in New Jersey, great friends in New Jersey, and but like there's a lot of comparisons between like suburban New York and suburban Boston in those days.
East of the Mississippi, that's like Springsteen country, and then like, oh, hey, I think Karina's here
Hey, look, it's Karina. Yeah,
on
we're
Born
talking
in the
about Born in the
USA.
USA. Yeah.
Oh, I love that album, but I'm so old. It's like you, Jay,
You're so
automatically.
old. Don't I have like a decade on you?
Yeah.
That album came out when I was just about 5. I had just
That
told
album
Forrest
came out when I
and
was
like
-2.
But is it were your parents big, or are they still big Bruce Springsteen fans?
oh yeah, 1,000%. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean I feel like kids at 5 don't really discover music on their own, and I'm the oldest of 2, so it's not like I had a big brother to give me like music suggestions or whatever, but and my parents were fairly young. I mean, my dad, when that record came out, was still in his late 20s. My mom had just turned 30. So by all accounts, they were still young. Um, but yeah, they were Springsteen fans from at least the Born to Run era, if not a little before that.
To be honest, Bruce Springsteen is one of the greatest musicians out there still. I'm a huge Bruce fan myself, the boss. I find him charming even in his old age. But have you so your parents introduced you to Bruce Springsteen, and how, like, when you up until now, like 30 years later, 40 years later,
40.
how's the relationship 40? How's the relationship with you and Bruce now? Is it an album you continuously return to?
No, which is interesting because I think listening, knowing that this was coming, like so the first time that I listened to the first episode of this that you and Forrest did, I was thinking, well, okay, when I go on that show, like very, very whatever, presumptuous of me, but I was like, when I go on that show, I'm going to definitely talk about Born in the USA for the 80s, and then definitely talk about the record that comes next for the 90s. And then it was like brutal to pick the last two. But this was always going to be the one in the 80s because it came out in the 80s. So like I don't think it's anywhere near Bruce's best record. But it's a record that I remember when it came out. I remember my parents going to the tour in New Jersey because my brother and I stayed at my aunt and uncle's house, I think with my grandmother, at least for one of those shows, the Giant Stadium. Like I hadn't listened to it all the way through in probably a decade prior to doing this. So it was a little interesting to go back. Obviously, I'm very familiar with those songs and they elicit a lot of core memories. And I've heard a bunch of the songs, obviously, a lot through the years, but hadn't actually listened to the record itself. I listened to Nebraska quite a bit. I listened to Born to Run. I listened to the first couple albums quite a bit. I listened to things as recent as like The Rising quite a bit, but hadn't because I don't like the actual song "Born in the USA," and I don't like "Dancing in the Dark," and those are obviously the two big singles from the record. Like, it's tough to listen to the record. I have like this aversion to synthesizer, like bad '80s synthesizer, and for whatever reason, I feel like Springsteen kind of leaned into that, especially on this record, and especially on "Born in the USA" and "Dancing in the Dark." And like, I don't know, I find it's very dated. Like as songs, I think they're still great, but like, I don't know, it's tough to listen to, overproduced and whatever.
I think that's my beef with them is that they're a little overproduced. Like they're not as raw. They're not as raw as they can be. Like it's almost like there's always that saying about how like there's two types of people who just kind of open everything up and they let everything and they work with everything, or like everything's got a box and everything's got a box right here and everything's got a box right here, and that's why this isn't sticking with me as much.
I think that that's true of a lot of Springsteen, truthfully, over the years. Like he was known as such a perfectionist in the studio, and like 10, 20, 30, 50 takes of a song, and like that, which has just got to be brutal if you are one of the musicians in his band. Like to have somebody with such a that's such a perfectionist and has such a vision in their brain of what they want this to sound like, that it's just got to be brutal as a musician. And it's, even though like it's probably what led me down the path of eventually listening to punk rock, it's a very like anti-punk rock thing, right? Like you don't leave a lot of the mistakes in. It's especially this record is very polished and like sounds super clean. And but again, most of the songs I think are great, and I think you can see that there's like some of the songs, Downbound Train, No Surrender, I think is a hugely underrated song. It like in another world, like if that had been released as a single, I bet you that Springsteen's career ends up far differently, because that's such like a pre-Gaslight Anthem song. Like I feel like you can, in listening to some of this record, you can see that like, oh yeah, not only is Gaslight Anthem from New Jersey, but like there's some of those seeds are planted from like this record.
Working on the Highway had a very Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent film on it too.
Yeah. I actually wrote Eddie Cochran in my notes too.
Oh, nice.
But it's like a precursor. In some ways, it's like a precursor to what became like that stupid stomp clap trend of like the 2000s, like the Lumineers and the whatever. But that kind of 1 2 1 2 1 2. But it's also got like that 50s thing to it, which is a big Springsteen thing. Like he's a big and unabashed 50s rock and roll fan.
Well, I actually think it's funny that we're talking about Bruce Springsteen like this, because I remember I told you that I'm a huge fan of Bleachers, Jack Antonoff, and you dislike Bleachers.
Dislike is a word that probably. I think what
that's a Diet Coke word for this.
It qualifies as dislike. Yeah, sure.
But and when because you're mentioning the overproduced, the 80s odd synthesizer, and now I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking like, oh yeah, that's starting to become popular with a lot of the bands out of New Jersey now.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I'm the only one that's noticed it lately. It's become a trend. Like if you can get some cringy, not cringy necessarily, if you can make it work, you can make it work. But getting the synthesizer in there, working it in, has become such a huge staple. Also in punk rock right now, it's become more and more common to start using synthesizers and
Yeah, I mean TSOL's been doing it for a bit.
They never bring the synth here when they play here. It's such
It's
a like it's a different show.
yeah, it's who they can bring. I sometimes
Yeah.
we can't get out.
Mhm.
Like they just went to Europe and they couldn't bring Greg.
There are times I like keyboards. I like keyboards in a song.
Mhm.
On board with keyboards. That'll come up again later in this this little episode. Synthesizer, yeah, I don't know. Unless you're Rush, like I'm good with having like you can leave the synthesizer stuff on the cutting room floor. I don't think it aged well. Except for
Mm.
Rush. But Rush was singing about like wizards and dragons and shit, like not like working in a factory, and PTSD from the Vietnam War don't really go well with like like
Yeah.
synthesizer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good.
But so just cycling back to, you don't think that Born in the USA is the boss's best album? Which album would you say was his best work? Like the crème de
I
la
mean,
crème?
it's so cliche, but I think that Born to Run is one of the best albums by anybody ever. So, like, start to finish, that record. Also, like, not without its overproduced moments, but it's overproduced differently. Like, I think that record is an example of Springsteen working until he got the sound right that he wanted. It's not quite as polished as Born in the USA is. It doesn't have the same sort of synthesizer. It has keyboards, obviously, but it doesn't have the same sort of synthesizer. But like from the first moment of the opening track on Born to Run, like every now and then I can put on a record for the first time. Not that I remember the first time that I listened to Born to Run, but like how an album starts. Like there are times where I can put a record on and be like, "Oh, I love this album already," and just know it. Like just from the first jump, which does come up on later in this episode too. Born to Run is one of those records. Like from the opening moments of the first track, it's like, "Oh yeah, love this record." 10 out of 10, and you're like 30 seconds into the record. But yeah, I think that that's one of the best albums ever written.
I don't want to be a cliche either, but I also think that Born to Run is the boss's best album.
Absolutely, hands down. Which is not to say that there aren't like great albums in there too. But gun to my head, absolutely, it's Born to Run, no question.
Yeah, I think She's the One is one of the most romantic songs I've ever heard.
Yes, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Because of the songs on that record, I think that one gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe Meeting Across the River too, but like, yeah.
I just really like how it's just about this, cold-hearted woman, but it's the way that he writes the characters, the narrative of the song. It's you're brought along, and it's like,
oh yeah,
and it's just such a great song, and I really wish people would look at it more.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. That's a good call. It's definitely, I think, an overlooked song in the Springsteen oeuvre, or whatever that word is.
And now I'm curious, what is his fandom called? Because I feel like every musician that has a fandom has some not weird name. Oh, I'm going to piss so many people off in this episode.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I don't know, actually. I don't know. I know that for a long time, and I think it's probably still the case, the big online community of Springsteen fans is actually influenced by a Born to Run song. Is called the Backstreets. That's like the big Springsteen journal is called Backstreets. I don't know if it's still a thing. I feel like it may have shut down, but I could be wrong about that. But like that's kind of the big thing. But I don't know of a name for like an actual name for like a Taylor Swift fan, Swifty kind of thing for Springsteen.
Oh, I hope it's Backstreet. Oh, that would be so cool.
Okay, so your second one was
Yes.
Pearl Jam 10.
Pearl Jam 10, yes.
Or where did you hear them for the first time? Like radio, like everybody, or
Probably MTV. Yeah, so that record came out just before I turned 12, which sort of like we were talking with your son, like that 12, 13, 14 is such like the time for discovering your own music.
yeah.
And so I remember Pearl Jam being like the first band that, oh, this was my band. And I think it was for the video for Even Flow. I think that that's the first time that I saw Pearl Jam. And that it was a live video. I feel like they shot it in Seattle, something like that. And just like, it wasn't a punk rock thing, although Pearl Jam is the reason I got into punk rock. More on that later. But it was just like the energy of that live performance was like, yes, this is exactly right. And then listening to the I got the CD was. God, Karina, you mentioned you're old. I remember getting my first CD player, and it was that Christmas of '91, because I was in seventh grade, I think. Yeah, seventh grade, and so this is so dumb. I don't know why I have this as a core memory. I remember being in gym class in seventh grade, and the gym teacher, like after Christmas break, saying, "Oh, what did everybody get for Christmas or whatever?" And I was like, "I got my first CD player, and I got Pearl Jam's 10." And my gym teacher was a big Pearl Jam fan. So as time went on, my middle school, junior high gym teacher I would like trade Pearl Jam tapes, like bootleg tapes and whatever.
Nice.
It was awesome. Coach Connolly, shout out to Coach Connolly. Yeah, it was awesome. But like, I remember getting that CD and putting it on the CD player for the first time and listening to that instrumental thing at the beginning of the first song. It's called Mama San, if you wanted to know. And then just like the riff that leads into the first song once is that sort of thing that I was talking about before, about when you can put on a record and hear right from Jump Street that like, oh, I love this. Like as soon as that riff, that guitar riff that leads off once, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I like, it's so dumb and it's so cliche, whatever. I don't care. It's like that's the thing where it's like, oh, this changed everything. Like, because I would listen to obviously my parents' music. I got really into like late '80s, early '90s R&B and hip hop stuff like that. So I listened to a lot of like Bobby Brown, New Edition, TLC, stuff like that. And then I remember like just that guitar, like at the beginning of Once, I was like, oh, yeah, this is it. This is where I go from here. Not that I didn't listen to hip hop and stuff as years went on, but yeah, that's when I kind of like that solidified my own direction musically.
The Once and Even Flow and Why Go, they all kind of have that same riff too, a bit. Like it kind of.
So it's also the record that made me want to be a bass player. So
Yes.
it's around the time when I got my first bass, and then in realizing that like half that record is kind of built around some version of the same riff, especially bass wise, but like the same sort of rhythm riff, because Jeff and Stone were in bands together forever prior to Pearl Jam. But like, yeah, Once, Even Flow, Why Go, like Jeremy at some level has the same sort of like, you live in the same part of the fretboard, basically, like between the fifth and seventh frets, kind of all up and down the fretboard. And it like, yeah, but the grooves that you can make, like that's what made me want to be a bass player. Not that I am a bass player, I own basses, but that like Jeff Ament from that time on became like my idol.
I think that's fair. We all want to strive to be someone else sometimes. So why did you not become a bass player? I'm curious now.
Not for lack of effort, really. Well, no, I guess it is for lack of effort. Yeah, like I didn't want to take lessons, and I have this personality trait where if I'm not going to be good at something, I don't want to do it. So
Yeah.
like I didn't want to necessarily have to practice. So I mean, like I know my way around a bass, but and played around with people in high school and college and stuff. But like after my brother is 2.5 years, 3 years younger than me, and he became a bass player as well, also inspired by Jeff Ament. And but then he became a bass player, like took bass lessons, is a music teacher now, and like there was only two of us, and you can't have two bass players in the family. Like, can't really sit around and both jam out on bass grooves to Pearl Jam songs. So I have more guitars than I have basses, but I still feel like I think like a bass player.
You mentioned that when you were going over these, this you said this with Born in the USA and this album that you don't listen to these albums for reasons.
Yeah, so I don't really listen. I don't really listen to 10 much anymore, because again, don't think it's their best record. Think it's overproduced. Think that like it sounds too clean, whatever. But it's the record that like started me down that path. So like I think that Vitology is a better record. I think that most of Versus is a better record. I think that a lot of Riot Act and Yield are better records. I really like No Code. But so gun to my head, if you're telling me like you can only bring one Pearl Jam record to a desert island, or like when you're shot out into space when the AI robots take over and you can only bring a limited amount of things, I probably don't take 10 with me. But I put it on this list because if not for that record, then none of the rest of it happens. So like because of what it meant at the time and what it has meant going forward, like it has to be this record.
It's significant in your development, in your music development.
Yeah, definitely. Like it is interesting that half of the first two of the four records are records that I don't listen to regularly for similar reasons and don't think are that band's best record. With the following two, I could make an argument that I think they are their best record. These two, like I think they're definitely not. They're just the records that came out when I was in my formative enough years that like they meant more. They meant something sort of foundational to me.
But I think that's what the list that we're doing here is about, because it might not be the first album or the second album we put on, but it does have significance in where we head down, because who says that if you put on something like Cher, for example, you probably wouldn't be sitting with a punk magazine online scene.
Right.
Maybe you would. I mean, Cher's not the best example. That was my example. But,
no, I remember. I know. You made a convincing argument, one that I wouldn't have assumed.
Well, I haven't even come to my bit about you talking about when we were doing the Spotify Wraps the past 3 years now, how you always ended up talking about Pearl Jam would probably be your number one.
Oh yeah. I used to, so back in the earlier days of Dying Scene, it was sort of like a running joke between a couple old writers and I, but like if I was doing an original story or interviews or something, I tended to always loop in a talk about Pearl Jam for some reason. Like they've just been so they've just been such like a staple in my life and like a focal point of a lot of my musical reference that I used to tend to always bring up Pearl Jam, less so now. You know, your foundation is your foundation, right? And I feel like a lot of people that got into punk rock got into Nirvana more so than Pearl Jam.
That was mine. I mean, mine was Nevermind.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was the case where you were, and I feel like it was the case here. Maybe this is just revisionist history, but like I feel like it was either you were Nirvana or you were Pearl Jam at some level, which is so dumb in hindsight, right? Like, yeah,
I bet you're not wrong.
But it was like Yankees versus Red Sox or something. Like you were Nirvana or you were Pearl Jam. And I think, frankly, most people didn't care. Most people just liked the music, right? Or whatever. But why it was those two and not like Soundgarden or Alice in Chains or whatever, like, it's like you liked Pearl Jam or Nirvana, and then the rest of the Seattle.
And the rest, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and
but
like
I mean,
Pearl Jam and Nirvana liked each other at some level, except when Kurt was being a dick. But
why not anyone else?
I
Why
think
those two? Because their music is different.
10 came out on August 27th, 1991.
Okay.
So 10 came out before Nevermind did, a couple weeks before Nevermind did. I don't like those were the two biggest records of the 90s Seattle grunge thing.
Yeah.
Was 10 and Nevermind. So it felt like you kind of had to plant your flag in one of those camps, like sort of like with people from the 60s with like the Beatles or the Stones. Like nowadays, like whatever, I don't care, and I don't think a lot of people think along those lines. My dad sort of jokes sometimes that when I do interviews with people, like I'll message like, hey, what should I ask so and so, and he'll be like, Beatles or Stones, just because like that was such the thing in the 60s and 70s, I guess, growing up.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's the same sort of thing for Nirvana, Pearl Jam. Truthfully, I think that's all it is.
Oh, this is interesting because I know if I was a 60s baby, it would be the Beatles. I really don't like Rolling Stones. Something about Mick Jagger's voice annoys me.
I get that. Yeah, I don't really care for either one, but I think the Beatles are probably a better band. The songs that I like by the Rolling Stones, I like more than any Beatles song. Does that make sense?
Like,
like I don't necessarily like the Stones
better, but
more.
individually the Stones are stronger.
Yeah. Like Give Me Shelter, that song gives me goosebumps still. And it's better than any song in the Beatles catalog. But that doesn't mean they're a better band. It just means like the good Stones songs. And I really I will admit I only know the singles when it comes to the Stones. I definitely know the Beatles catalog more because we listened to them more in my house growing up. But like singles to singles, I think the Stones singles are better than the Beatles, but the Beatles are a better band. But I don't really listen to any of them actively.
Yeah, but now I actually find it interesting that you're mentioning that it's like Pearl Jam or Nirvana because I don't know what I would pick. I feel like I would go with Nirvana because everybody my age would go with Nirvana. But I do think that Pearl Jam are like you're saying with the Beatles, they're a better band. Not because Nirvana split up, but I just think that they have more talent.
So maybe like the high water mark for Nirvana might be sort of Rolling Stones. Like the high water mark might be higher, but maybe I don't know.
I'm not discrediting Kurt Cobain as like that doesn't mean that he's not good. I just think that Pearl Jam were more put together.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
In their musicianship. You know, it was tighter. It's not that tighter means more rehearsed. It just felt like they spoke together. They spoke the same language when it came to performing and the songs. It was just like a harmony that when you hear a Pearl Jam song, it feels like you're like being wrapped into it. Like it's wrapping around you like a hug, but it's not a hug. It's nice and warm.
I feel like they're more of a rock and roll band, and I feel like Nirvana is more of like a post-punk band.
Yeah.
Because I don't really consider Nirvana a punk band. I consider them more of like a post-punk band. But I also I don't know, I went through this weird thing with Cobain and almost like he was like a Jim Morrison level. Like I feel like people looked at him like a Jim Morrison level, like poet. And I loathe Jim Morrison. I don't like the Doors viscerally. And so I think that I kind of connected, didn't like Nirvana as much because I thought people looked at Kurt like Jim Morrison. I loathe Jim Morrison. So that's probably an unfair comparison. But
I bet
not when you're 12.
No.
That's, for 12, it's probably not a horrible one I think I'm sure there's an argument in there for it. I think
that's a very reflective thought for a 12-year-old discovering music. I actually think that's a very interesting take.
I know sometimes we've probably talked in Discord or wherever about my loathing of the Misfits and of Glenn Danzig
we've
as
done
like
that.
a
We've
as
done
like a
that.
song as like a songwriter.
Everybody's
and
mentioned that.
I think that Danzig, like Jim Morrison is like pre-Danzig. I just think of what's the hell's that song? Well, Riders on the Storm. I think that song blows. But there's that other song, The End, I think, is it
This is
like
the
this class?
end.
Yeah. Like, father, yes, son, I want to kill you. Mother, yes, son. I'm like, fuck you. Shut the. Oh, that drives me nuts. And I feel like, to me, it's the same energy as, mommy, I want to go out and kill tonight or something. Like, shut the fuck up. No, like, I'm sorry. Like,
No, it's fine, dude.
so 10 is the reason that I like punk rock. And I know that 10 is not a punk rock album. I know that Pearl Jam is not a punk rock band. But when you're a 12-year-old kid diving down the rabbit hole of, because it was the days where like you could go to the store and buy music magazines. And so like you'd buy a music magazine if it referenced Pearl Jam on the cover, or a guitar magazine if it referenced Pearl Jam on the cover. And you read the things that like, that always do dumb quick hitter interviews with people in bands. And it's like you hear them talking about their influences, and to hear Eddie and Jeff in particular talk about like their love of Fugazi. So that got me into listening to like Fugazi. Mike would talk about his love of Social Distortion sometimes. So that got me into liking Social Distortion. And then Eddie guested on a couple songs on Bad Religion's Recipe for Hate record. To me, that was like the way that I got into punk rock before like 1994. Like the summer of 94 is when I was about turning 15. So that's the summer that everybody got into punk rock. But I was like, I already listened to all this stuff. Like, I already know all this stuff because Pearl Jam got me into listening to punk rock. Not that they were a punk band, but that's what they grew up listening to. And that's what they talked about in interviews. Obviously, there's like 70s classic rock vibes and whatever too. But like, that's how I got into Bad Religion. That's how I got into Fugazi. That's how I got into Social D. That's how I got into that whole... That Pearl Jam in their early days used to cover Sonic Reducer, which was mostly known as a Dead Boy song. That's how I got into punk rock. Was not from like the punk of the two bands, Nirvana. It was through Pearl Jam because they were into the punk rockers.
So it was just a snowball effect from. So it was kind of like when I discovered Fall Out Boy, it became a snowball effect on YouTube at that point.
Sure. Yeah.
So yours was just with music magazines and reading the interviews.
Yeah, and listening to bootlegs. It was the days. I mean, I'm sure it exists now, but it's online and everything's on YouTube. Every band's every show is on YouTube. But like, you used to be able to trade bootlegs or go to the CD store and buy Japanese import CDs for like $50 too. It was so dumb. I don't know why they were so much money, but and so they would play covers of old punk rock songs. And so that's how I got into it. And because I felt like they fit into, and I think that like, as Pearl Jam went, like the next few albums versus Vitology, like those are rawer sounding, less produced records. And I think that that's where they kind of leaned into the angsty, aggressive punk rock thing.
Oh.
You sold me on going to give those albums a chance because punk rocker 14-year-old Forrest is like, fuck this shit. Now, reasonable 42-year-old Forrest is like, well, maybe
I was wrong.
Go into your like retroactive dad rock phase, and I think Vitology especially. I think like there is a punk rock, like, because that was the record that was like, it was written right around when Kurt died, I think. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
It was written right around when Kurt died, and it's just like this raw, pissed off energy to that record, and they kind of leaned into underproducing almost a lot of that record. That's a great record.
Okay, well now I'm interested. That's gonna be my album, my Monday album. I can feel it.
It's a weird record. Like, Vitology is a weird record too. There's a lot of weird filler in it. There was a concept they were going for, which made sense to me when I was 15.
That doesn't matter. I'm a huge King Gizzard fan, and that's fucking weird.
That's fucking weird too.
I love that. I love that band. So I'm down for weird. I clown with weird. Like, I fuck around with it.
Right.
So okay. I'll send you a 1-page review of it. I'm not going to put in how many words because I'll just be super annoying and remove all
Right.
margin. How many times have you seen Pearl Jam live though?
10, I think.
Oh, ironically,
Wow.
or
I know,
coincidentally
right?
and ironically, wow,
Right.
coincidentally.
I know,
Um,
and I kind of thought about that the last time I saw them, which was last summer at Fenway Park, which is a place that I never, ever, 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 ever wanted to see a show because it's not good for concerts. And I always said the only band I would ever see there is Pearl Jam, and they are still the only band I've ever seen there. But yeah, I went to like my dad took my brother and one of my high school friends and I to Hartford, Connecticut from Nashua, New Hampshire on a school night in 1996. That was my first Pearl Jam show. And the thing was like you have to go to school the next day. And so that's like a 2.5 hour drive without post show traffic. So that was my first Pearl Jam show. That was such a show that it was on Kurt Loder MTV News the next day because there were riot police and tear gas and shit like that involved. Yeah. Talk about a punk rock show. It was at a big, like 17,000 seat amphitheater, like outdoor amphitheater. The crowd was nuts to the extent that the state police tear gas people.
how heavy is the set with these songs when you see them?
Nowadays, I do actually have a list because I'm a dork. I do have a list of every set list from every time that I've seen them. And I know that I've seen the whole record. Like, Even Flow gets played all the time. Alive gets played all the time. Porch gets played all the time. Jeremy was bigger back in the day, a little less so now. Black gets played fairly regularly. It went for a while without being played at all. Sometimes they'll open a show with Release, which is a really good opener. It's this like slow build sort of song. But the crowd does tend to go a little, like give it a little extra when they play Why Go, like songs that they don't play all that regularly, but there's still like this visceral reaction to people because people love 10. Yeah, I'd have to actually look at my list to figure out how many times I've seen each song, but I think I've seen Even Flow, Alive, and Porch at every show, I think.
All right, so your third one for
Yes.
30s.
This was brutal.
Lucero,
so
1372 Overton Park.
Yes, 1372 Overton Park by Lucero. This was hard. Finding an album of the 2000s and only one album of the 2000s was hard. And it really makes me feel crappy to not have included Gaslight Anthem's 59 Sound here.
That's such a good fucking album too.
It's such a good record. Like, it's such a good record. I remember where I was the first time I saw the video for 59 Sound. Like, that album came out when I was a new dad. It was the summer of 08. Like, I was a new dad. I was getting ready for work. I saw like this video and I was like, oh shit, this is like a combination of my dad's music, like Springsteen, and but these kids are like my age. They're like punk rockers. Like, Fallon's got sleeve tattoos, and like these looks like my people making my dad's people's music, or my parents' people's, not just my dad. My mom likes Springsteen too. I always say my dad's music. I should give my mom more credit. My mom's a Springsteen fan too. But so it makes me feel bad to not have that record on here. It makes me feel bad for a variety of reasons. But like, I can't not have a Lucero record in this foursome. And 1372 Overton Park is the record where Lucero went from, oh, that's a cool band to me, to, oh, I really like that band. Like, that band is different. And there's a lot of reasons for that. They leaned into the Memphis sound more on this record. They actually worked with a producer for the first time on this record. They worked with Ted Hutt, who has done he was in Flog and Molly for a while, but produced Flog and Molly records. He's produced Dropkick records. Like, he's like a real producer. And it was the first time they worked with a real producer. And I think that it shows, but they also brought in the horns. So they had the horn section for a while, which in hindsight, like, turned a lot of people off because some of them, like, people liked a little bit of the rawer sound before. And I think some people thought this record was maybe too polished and didn't like the horns and didn't know where they fit. This is one of those records that for me also is like, oh, right from Jump Street, right from the beginning, the fade in of Smoke, the first song on the record. So this is the record that when people say, I've never really heard Lucero, I like a couple songs, what album should I listen to? This is the one, because I think it's the one that's most indicative of the things that I like best about Lucero.
The earlier stuff I heard was a lot more, felt like it leaned a little more into country. Am I wrong?
You're right. Yeah, they for a while used to joke that they were like too country to play punk rock shows and too punk rock to play country shows. So they were just Lucero. There was like a lot of alcohol involved. For whatever reason, they got super big into like, there's these weird little pockets of like fandom around the country that were tied. They were in a couple like old BMX tapes, like BMX bike tapes and whatever. There were a couple old Lucero songs. So they got this really big, rowdy, like drunken sing-along kind of crowd. And a lot of their early records have a lot of those drunk sing-alongs, which are still drunk sing-alongs when you see them live. Like songs like Tears Don't Matter Much and whatever. Like those songs are always the crowd pleasers. I think that 1372 Overton Park is when they became like a real band. Not that they weren't before, but like they added Rick Steff on piano, and he's like a professional musician. His dad played with Elvis. He's like a professional Memphis musician, and they became a real band. Like to me, it's almost like they became like Springsteen has the E Street Band. Like 1372, I think, is their band record. Like they're the sort of Memphis / punk rock version of the E Street Band to bring Springsteen back into it.
And that was the most surprising about this, because all the stuff I heard before, I heard old stuff from like, I think towards the end of high school. Like I heard they have a cover of Kiss the Bottle.
Kiss the Bottle, yeah.
Jawbreaker. And that's how I kind of got into them that way. And I'm like, oh, this leans country. And then you were like, oh, yeah, you should go check them out. And then everything I hear has horns and piano.
Yeah, right.
And it's not bad. It's just like, that's not the Lucero I heard at first.
Yeah, which I think is why it sort of turned some of the early fans, I don't want to say off, but it was kind of got weird for them, I think. But to me, that's what made them a better band. Like the songwriting really shines, I think, starting on this record.
Does the Unplugged album kind of take these songs and kind of, I don't want to say make them sound like the older stuff, but kind of give them more of that vibe, kind of?
It makes them pretty. Like, okay. I think that what Rick does, like Rick's a real pretty piano player, and he's a very instinctive piano player, and he can figure out, and I've talked about Ben about this. Like he can figure out what he needs to be playing. Like as he's listening to the rough demo of the song, he's like, oh yeah, I got it. Bang. And then like, he's a professional. And I think he makes the earlier songs sound a little less drunken sing-along and sound a little prettier, a little more grown up. I think
just sing along rather than drunken sing along.
Well, yeah, right. or like,
hey, we can't judge anybody for the past.
Then and maybe you're drinking better liquor. Like instead of just
what that Danish liquor's like,
instead of like crushing 40 Pabst Blue Ribbons in a sing along, it's you've got a bourbon with you or something.
You're saying that this album turned a lot of, maybe it did. We're just going with the flow here. A lot of the fans off from the music. If you have a new person that's never listened to them before or even heard of them, which song from the album would you actually suggest that they dived into first so you could get a feel of?
That is a really good question, because I always recommend the record itself. And then as a backup, I recommend the Live from Atlanta record, which is cheating, I know. But I think that the Live from Atlanta record, which came out after Women in Work, so like 2012, 2013, that record, I think, makes the early songs sound like this record, if that makes sense.
So it's the opposite of what I was asking. It makes those earlier songs Gotcha. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, the live in Atlanta record makes the earlier songs sound like they're played by a better band, because they are played by a better band. Like Lucero circa 2012 was better than they were as musicians circa 2000. If I were to pick a song from this record, that is a really good question. I think that the song that tends to have the most legs amongst the fans. God, this is hard. This is really hard. That's a good question, Karina. Many of the Lucero fans, when Smoke gets played, the first song on the record.
Yeah.
I think it touches on some of the same drunken sing-along thing, but it's different. So I think that maybe that song, because it has like that's that whole Unknown and Beautiful in the chorus thing is such like a unifying thing that I know, like the song is written about a singular individual, but like you kind of put yourself into it. Like I think that sort of sing along probably gives the best example from this record. Hey Darling, Do You Gamble is probably what Ben would say. I feel like it's the song, that's probably the song from this record that they still played the most, is Hey Darling, Do You Gamble, because I think that it's Ben has said a few times that like he considers it the first Lucero song that you could like play at a wedding. That is like his take on an actual love song. And not like there's probably 50 songs that Ben's written that are like brokenhearted love songs, right? But that seems to be the first one
That's
that
hopeful.
is like a love song. Yeah. Like, yeah. There are a lot of songs on this record about like taking a chance on like the woman as a savior, really. Like the woman is going to be the one who sets the guy straight. But I think Hey Darling, Would You Gamble is probably what Ben would say. Although Mom is a really good song when it's played live too, because like when you're a drunk dude in your feelings, it's nice to sing a song about your mom.
That's the closing track on the album. So funny story, I did not know about them until Jay was out.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So when I started at Dying Scene, I had no idea who they were. And Jay was out taking pictures of them at a show for the 120th time. I think that's one of the bands that Jay's taken the most pictures of. And I think you do it like 3 times a year.
I try to, yeah. 22, if you were going to ask for us how many times I've seen it. 22.
22.
Since Dying Scene or altogether?
Altogether, yeah. Altogether. Most of those since 2015. Like I decided like I just fell in love with that band so much that I wanted to be in their orbit. And so I willed it to happen. That's so dumb. I was just like, well, I want to be friends with this band. So I'm going to be friends with this band. And now look.
Yeah, but I think it was kind of cool. But for me personally, I regret never asking which album I should have started with and which song I should have started with. And I do think it was kind of interesting going down the path I went, but it was also a very overwhelming path because with this album, you do have the horns, and that gets that comes in as a shock, but it's just I don't know, I think the horns work, and I actually really like the horn section. I love horns.
I missed the horn. So like I feel like a lot of people have sort of come full circle with it. Like people, not me, some people were like, oh, it's weird to have this horn section. But they were leaning into like the Memphis soul, like incorporating some of that Memphis soul sound into.
And you could hear it on the accents too. They were leaning much more into the authentic, like their authentic dialects and stuff. I find it I really like this album too. It's actually on one of my top albums from them.
Hell yeah. It is for a reason, the album that I tell people that they should listen to. It's tough to pick a song though. There's some more rock and roll song like Sixes and Sevens, Devil and Maggie Cascarillo, which that's a song that Forrest should like because that's inspired by graphic novels. That's 11.
What am I missing on it? Which one?
Hernandez is
No. I know the
Devil
song.
and Maggie Cascarillo.
No.
It's
What graphic novel is it based on?
oh,
That I'm.
Love and Rockets.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
shit! I didn't even pick up on
Love and
that.
Rockets is yeah. Like
Oh my
Maggie
gosh!
Cascarillo is like the protagonist because Ben Ben has always wanted to be, for a songwriter, he's always wanted to be a graphic novelist. So he's always had in the back of his mind, like being a graphic novelist someday. And like, that's his thing. His brother is a filmmaker and he wanted to be a graphic novelist and just became, at least that song is based on a graphic novel or inspired by a graphic novel. Johnny Davis is inspired by a photography book called The Bike Riders. So there is sort of a classic Lucero song called Bike Riders, which is inspired by a photography book by a guy called Danny Lyons. It's all like, it's motorcycle clubs from Chicago. Johnny Davis is one of the characters in The Bike Riders. Ben's brother Jeff put out the movie Bike Riders a couple of years ago. Johnny Davis is one of the characters in that movie Bike Riders. So this is like a callback to Bike Riders. Cool. I don't know, it isn't always my favorite Lucero record because I have a real affinity for Among the Ghosts, which came after it, but it might be my favorite. I don't know. This is the first one of these that like became this is the first of my big four records that like it might be my favorite by that band. Oh, and if you think I can talk about the first three records, wait till you hear my thoughts on the fourth one.
And that's Dave House's Devour.
That is Dave Hause's Devour. Yeah.
The man that Jay's interviewed once a year forever.
Yeah, we just did. It has not come out yet. We just did our 10th.
But you have already interviewed him this year, haven't you?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Well, he keeps making music.
I did interview Ben Nichols twice this year because they had the acoustic record and then he had his solo record. So, well, we're gonna have to keep chatting. So, Dave Hause's Devour, I couldn't not put on here too. Again, felt really bad for not putting on a second Gaslight Anthem record. Like, my second favorite album from my 20s is a Gaslight Anthem record, I guess. My second favorite album from my 30s is a Gaslight Anthem record. But like, so I'm wearing a Gaslight Anthem t-shirt today to sort of like make it up to them because like it could have realistically been Gaslight Anthem's Get Hurt, which is one that like kind of turned a lot of fans off. I love that record and have loved it since the day it came out.
I feel like you're a rebel, Jay. Like you just
I like what I like. Yeah,
on something, and then you just go and you're vocal about it. You're just like, well, I like it. I don't care if you don't like it. I like it. So
I don't I don't do that stuff to be contrarian. Like there's so it also is kind of weird that like for a long time, Face to Face has been my favorite punk rock band. They maybe still are. But one of their best records, I think, is Ignorance is Bliss, which is their decidedly like not punk rock record.
The one where they're like, you're doing this, fuck you.
Yeah, the one where they're like, we're going to grow beards and wear flannel and record a not punk rock record and fuck you if you don't like it. Well, as it turns out, a lot of people didn't like it. I love that record. I have always loved that record. I have loved that record since it came out.
Oh, that's funny. Their indie folksy era.
So I don't do that for like, I don't do it to be contrarian. I feel like sometimes people dislike records like that to be contrarian. I feel like when a band takes a left turn, I feel like some people are like, oh, play the hits or whatever. Like, that's dumb. Yeah. And I like when bands take chances. I like when they dive into other like things that they like and things that they're inspired by. Like I love the Ramones, but like I think that gun to your head, you probably couldn't if I gave you a list of Ramones songs, I guarantee that most people probably couldn't put most of them in order of like when they came out,
Oh,
because
that's
they kind of right
Vanishing Brain Teasers.
right like we'll
Put
give
these
you a
remote
list
song in
of
order.
20 Ramon songs, put them in order of when they came out, and you could be off by a decade, who knows, because like they did the thing that they did very well, and when they kind of got a little weird towards the end, nobody liked it.
Do you consider 1372 Overton Park from Lucero a left turn?
Good question. No. uh
See?
Kinda.
so I don't think it's a left turn. It might be a merge into an adjacent lane,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Like, I think that if you listen to their,
So they added those horns and they get to go in the carpool lane now?
they or maybe the center lane. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like I think that it is a logical progression. I think if you listen to their records, starting with the self-titled record, or the Attic tapes, the Attic tapes are different. The Attic tapes is like the first bootlegs that they came out with, and really, that band was Ben Nichols, Brian Venable, who was just learning how to play guitar, and they had a violin player.
And that's
like
that's what I heard, yeah.
Yeah, the first iteration of that band is Ben and Brian and a violin player, and then they got John C. and Roy, and sort of rounded out the band.
Like that, I can tell you. Go ahead, Karina. Sorry.
I wasn't saying anything.
No, I think that was me rambling again. But I think that like as they rounded out their sound and figured out what their sound was going to be, I think that 1372 sort of like crystallized it, like made it better. I don't think it's a supersonic departure from like Rebels, Rogue, Swarm Brothers, which came before it, but I think that they did all of that stuff better. Like the songs are better.
Yeah. And that's why it's one of the best albums. It's like number 3. Or maybe it's number 2. I actually think I have a list somewhere. I've decided to put all albums that I believe are from every band I like, go through their albums and like put them in first and second and third place, and then I just forget about the rest.
Yeah.
Then they don't exist. If you don't come up in the top 3, I don't think you exist.
We saved my favorite of these records for last, so that's good.
All right.
Yeah. And why is it your favorite?
So I don't know. I feel like this is turning into story time with Jay, which is fine. So I remember I've been friendly with Dave Hause for a while now. And the first time I met Dave in person and we sat down to do an interview, we had traded messages and stuff before, but it was a tour he was doing opening for Flogging Molly. It was after his first solo record came out. He was opening for Flogging Molly, and we sort of hit it off, to me at least, but Dave has confirmed this, that we sort of hit it off right away, and had a good conversation. And he was in the process of writing what was going to be his second record, which is what turned into be Devour. And we talked for a while about him, sort of like the things he was struggling with in writing this record. And that night he played Autism Vaccine Blues. And I was standing next to my brother. I went to that show with my brother and my wife. And my brother and I both looked at each other, like after that song, like, holy shit, that song is a sledgehammer. And I knew that was going to be on whatever became Dave's next record. And I think, as memory serves, Dave was like, he was riding with Flogging Molly on their bus. Like, they were gracious enough to let him do that tour, like, from their bus. But I think at some point he decided that he was stuck on a few things and really needed to focus on writing. So I think he did the last maybe couple of weeks of that tour in a car. Like, he just rented a car and did it and drove by himself because he was still working on ideas. And then, so I kind of knew where I thought he was going songwriting wise. And I liked the Loved Ones before. Like the Loved Ones are a great band. I like Dave's first record a lot. Dave did this really cool project after the first record where he reimagined every song from the first record and put out, I think it was five 7-inches, each with a different label and each with 2 songs on it. And then he did 2 songs from other artists on that label. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was like a fun and unique sort of way to reimagine his own songs. And so that, like, me writing a story about that was actually the origin of he and I becoming friendly with each other. And then at some point I got Devour in my email. It was well before the record came out. And another one of those things where I went, holy shit, right from the first listen, like the opening lines to Damascus and sort of note like that, welcome my friends to the show. And like that song literally and figuratively sort of setting the stage for what comes next and like where the story goes after that. I was like, this is really awesome. And it's a really different way, I think, to write a record. And then I listened to the record the whole time, the first time through. And I went, well, that's one of my favorite records ever. Like I knew from the first listen. And I have gone, like I went back and actually read I did a review of that record in 2013 when it came out. And like, I was like, oh, wow, I did a good job. Like, that's a good review. And it echoes what it should have. And like, to me, it holds up 12 years later. Love that record. To me, that record is one of the benchmark, like litmus tests that I apply really to a lot of records, especially singer-songwriter records, is like Devour as a standard. To the extent that, like Karina, you mentioned that Dave and I talk quite a bit. He has said that it's become like a good luck charm, like talking to me like during the release cycle of an album. But I remember the first couple albums after Devour, and he knows my thoughts about Devour. And I remember him saying at one point, I think it was for Bury Me in Philly, which is his next record, is like, I remember him saying to me once, him being nervous about me hearing it. And I was like, well, that's dumb. Like, why? I'm nobody. But he's like, no, like, I know like what your standard is and like the things that you appreciate in songwriting and in my songwriting. And he was like, there's a few people, you're one of them, who I was nervous for what they were going to say about this record. I was like, that was the first time, like, as a music, whatever I am, like,
Critic?
I don't say, yeah, I guess critic. As a music writer,
Reviewer,
I guess. But that was the first time I was like, I felt like maybe then I felt like being that I was a music critic or something like that. Like, because a songwriter that I, for a long time, and especially at that moment, really like loved and appreciated, was like, oh, I'm interested in what your actual, like, not just what the fans input on this record is, but what your specific input on this record is. That's one of the first times I had that happen. I was like, oh, maybe we're doing something cool here. Maybe I'm doing something cool here. But yeah, that record. So you can ask questions. I can just ramble however you want.
Let me see.
Okay, I can start. I want to be honest. I've never listened to Dave.
Yeah.
Because I'm afraid that, well, okay, first things first. I love singer-songwriter. I think it's one of the most special genres that are still here, and one that's actually overlooked often because it has this reputation of being slow and emotional. And I think one of my friends said it nicely, like, well, they tried to say it nice. It was like, it's very whiny. And I actually think that's one of the things that I love about it. But because of your relationship with Dave, I do feel like if I don't like it, I would actually be sad. So
That makes
I've
sense. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I've actually made it made it my job to not actively avoid Dave's
Mm,
music, but I
mm.
do find myself not looking into it as much as I should.
Which is
This
the
is actually,
opposite of what you did with Lucero. So that's interesting.
yeah, but that's because I know you can read and hear in the interviews that there's this very deep connection between you.
Yeah.
And it's very wholesome because it you can hear how comfortable or read how comfortable he is.
Mm,
And I think that's one of the beautiful things about what we do. It's when we
mm.
do make those connections. So it's also like, what
1000%. Yeah.
what if I don't like Dave? What if what if what if Dave's music and we can't get along? But I mean, we probably would because
You probably would.
I'm a very whiny person myself. So,
Yeah, and
so
I think that Dave doesn't do the whiny thing. I
Mm-mm.
know what you're
no,
talking about, but I think that
yeah.
Dave doesn't do the whiny thing. And I think that some of that comes from, we actually just talked about this. I think that some of that comes from him being the frontman of a punk rock band for a year, or a couple of
Hmm.
punk rock bands for years. Like Dave is a singer-songwriter for sure.
Hmm.
In the he does the Chuck Reagan thing, like the Brian from Gaslight, like looking around my room, but the Ben Nichols thing. Like he is a singer-songwriter. But before that, he was also like frontman of punk rock bands. And he
Yeah.
was and I think that like he still has that thing very much in him. Even if he's just doing him and an acoustic guitar or him and his brother
Mhm.
in acoustic guitars, because he and Tim play together a lot. Like he still very much can control a crowd and an audience and write a song like a punk rock frontman.
What would you say is your favorite song off this album then? Even with those Springsteen vibes on it, I was like, oh, this is a little more darker than that polished
Yeah.
Springsteen stuff. So I mean, I really
Hmm.
like We Could Be Kings and Autism Vaccine Blues. Um, but yeah,
Wait, what kind?
what's up?
What the titles you said before Autism Maxine Blues?
Oh, We Could Be
We Could
King.
Be Kings. Yeah.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that, those first 4 or 5 songs, it's like a great intro. I mean, not intro, but like a great run of songs, like that go, I mean, they fit perfect. Like it's just
Yeah.
like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like the other album, and this is only because I was working on an article that's doing this. Like that to me is "And Out Come the Wolves." Like that first five
Yeah.
or six songs, like that first most of that first side, and just song after song is just great. Like and this first side kind of does that same thing. I mean,
Mm.
and they're not even thematically the same either. Like Rancid, like that Rancid one, you can kind of say they're thematically the same. They're all about
Yeah.
recovery and addiction and just that world
Mm.
that they were living in. This one, I mean, it's thematically. I mean, they are all in common because it's his voice.
I think
Yeah.
that like I said, from the first time I heard it with Autism Vaccine Blues, I was like, holy shit, that song.
Yeah,
Like the progression of that song, the way that he tells a story, turns a phrase in that song, even the whole idea of like an autism vaccine, like the joke, whatever, but being that vaccines cause autism, and obviously we know they don't, but like, so what if there was a vaccine from autism that took the autism away, and now you're like taking in all the senses and the things that you're exposed to differently because you've had that sort of veil, I guess, lifted. Like I think that is a brilliant song. I think that those, like you were talking about, I was actually looking at it in that context before we started talking. Great Depression, We Could Be Kings are
Mm.
similarly themed, I think. I think that there's a lot of like turning 30, turning the other side of 30, realizing that like our generation, the Reagan kids, were sort of sold a bill of goods, really. Like we're the
yeah,
first generation, the latter part of Gen X, beginning part of millennials that's gonna be worse off than our parents because of the collapse of the
Everything.
Reagan years of everything, of like organized religion, and how, especially if you grew up in the Catholic Church, like how fucked that became, and how many of us internalized a lot of those things. So I think those two sort of thematically are similar. Autism Vaccine Blues, it's sort of, I guess, related. And then he gets into, like, Dave was also going through a divorce. It's so like lame and cliche to say it's his divorce record, because it's more than that. But that's also the same thing for Gaslight Anthems Get Hurt. Like, it was Brian Fallon's divorce record, and it's a brilliant record.
It's not called a divorce album. It's called a Getting to Know the New Them album.
Sure.
Mhm.
I think that, like,
But I think those are two different types of records, because I'm not knowing I'm not having listened to the next record. I think those are two different things when you're going through something, and then the whatever emerges from that afterwards.
Yeah, and I think that Dave was kind of going through that whole process while he was writing Devour, and I think, if I'm putting myself in his shoes, that's some of the stuff that he was grappling with, is not just like the divorce and the stuff that went wrong, but also like how to come out on the other side of it, and how your partner comes out on the other side of it. Stockholm Syndrome is written sort of from the perspective of like him trying to put himself into his ex's shoes, like to write a song about, on her end, about coming through a failed marriage. Like, a lot of the rest of that album, after Great Depression, We Could Be King, Autism Vaccine Blues, a lot of that stuff is sort of grappling with like going through and coming out of the divorce and trying to figure out what's going to come next. Like that song Bricks. I remember the first time I saw Dave play Bricks, it was here in Boston on the tour for this record. And he doesn't play it. He doesn't play the guitar on the record. I think Hunter Townsend maybe plays the guitar on the record. And he was like, he told Hunter what he wanted to do, and Hunter did it really well. And then Dave had to kind of go back and figure out how to play it.
Yeah.
But he did sort of like the Tim Barry thing. I don't know if any of you have seen Tim Barry in concert.
No.
I just saw him last night. But
does he come to Denmark ever?
Tim doesn't fly very much nowadays, so those days are probably over.
Okay.
But he'll every couple songs in a set, he'll take the mic down, just put it in the middle of the crowd on the floor, and then come down off the stage and just play from the floor. And Dave did Bricks basically that way. The first time I saw him at this club called the Middle East here in Cambridge. And it was really like, that's a song about trying to figure out what comes next, right? Like after the divorce is done and you're like, oh shit, where do I go? But either way, I'm going to build something, and I'm going to build something out of the wreckage from this. And it was a really like, I hadn't seen Dave do that before. I'd seen Tim do it because that's kind of Tim's thing. I hadn't seen Dave do that before. It was really like, he may have even not even stood in the crowd. He might have even just sat on the edge of the stage. It was a really cool, and it's a really, like, I think that not that song wraps up the record, because Benediction does, but I think that like it was a good place to leave that record because it plants the seeds for what comes next. And then Benediction, like, I love the way that Damascus, which leads off the album, and then Benediction closes the album, but they bring you into the story, tell you what you're going to hear, then you hear the whole story, and then Benediction wraps it up and asks you basically to process what you just heard. Like, did you enjoy it? Did you take notes? Did you like what did that, like, he's basically asking you while you're listening to it what it made you feel. I love that. I love that about this record.
I'm sold now. I
like
that album.
Yeah, like it's very much written, especially the opening and closing songs. Like it's very much written with a point. And the opening and closing songs like wrap it all, like they tell you that he's telling you a story and that he's going to tell you a story. And then at the end, he tells you that, look, he just told you a story. What did you do with it?
Did you even notice?
What was that?
Did you even notice like that?
Oh,
one
what?
of the
Yeah,
functions? Yeah.
First time I heard it. Yeah. The first line in the first song, Damascus, is welcome my friends to the show. Dance and drink if you like, or sit back and take notes. And so like he's basically like I'm going to tell you a story. Like you're a be as along for the ride as you want to be, however it feels comfortable to you, but you're going to be along for a ride here. Yeah, I can't love it enough. I really can't.
So does that put that into concept album then, or no?
And
I'm not saying that in like a bad way.
Yeah.
Album.
I feel like it does. I don't necessarily know what the concept is. Like, I don't know that I could narrow the concept down, but the concept is very much like a story of, I mean, it's his story, right? But like, it's a story of being in your early 30s and coming to terms with the fact that like life chewed you up and spit you out. And which you know is a particular context that you could read the word devour into. There's a few, like the term devour comes up a few times on the record, and so I think it takes on a few contexts, but that could be like life has sort of devoured you, chewed you up and spit you out, and now you have to kind of figure out where to go from here.
Oh wow.
Yeah, even like the only thing maybe I would have done differently were I him is to switch the order of the shine and bricks. Bricks being like that slow acoustic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like this is, I'm going to move on from this. I don't know how. And the shine is like, it's a little bit cathartic. It's just like, it's basically just like a rallying cry to keep going. Like if you've got something in you, like a fire in you that's burning to do something or to just move forward, like just do it, follow it. If you got the shine, shine on. And that, like, that song also becomes really heavy because the guy that does, I think it's Scott Hutchison from Frightened Rabbit, who does like that if you got the shine, shine on, they're kind of going back and forth in the outro to that song. I think that's Scott Hutchison, who unfortunately, obviously, took his own life a couple of years after this song, and is somebody who battled with depression for a long time. And yeah, so that like retroactively, that makes that song sound like even heavier. I think it's a bit of a heavy song. It sounds sort of hopeful, but then it's also like, I don't know, it has a different gravity to it after that whole thing happens.
I'm gonna need to listen to that album. I'm convinced now. Not that I wasn't convinced before, but it just sounds interesting that it sounds like a very insightful album.
I think that is a good way to explain Dave. In my opinion, anyway. Yeah. Dave's a thoughtful guy.
Yeah. But I think it's very, like, it takes a lot, because one of the things that when you're in a punk rock band or just a punk band, like nothing's off the table. Like you can write about everything and you're expected to write about everything and nothing at the same time, you know? Some songs can just be fun, but then, I mean, punk's very driven music, and that's one of the great things about punk music. So I like it when the old lead singers of punk bands turn around and do something completely different, because somehow it gets more intimate. That's the word I was looking for. So the way you're describing this album, it just, I don't know, I got goosebumps I mean, fair enough, you want to switch around two songs, but it just
Yeah,
sounds really, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It just sounds like it's something that resonates a lot with maybe everyone. And I think it's kind of clever how he starts the album and then ends it. I think that's kind of cool.
yeah. I like I said, I can't love this album enough, and it's a. I have talked about this with Dave that it's like an
Hmm.
unfair thing that I do, especially when listening to a new Dave Hause record, and so like especially unfairly because like his brother Tim has put out a couple solo records now too, and I kind of do the same thing. Like I kind of hold Tim's
Hmm.
records up to the standard of Devour. Although I will say Tim's second record, which came out early this year, Pre-Existing Conditions, is
Hmm.
like his version. It's like not that it's the same record by any stretch as Devour
Hmm.
because they're inspired by very different things, but it's a great record. And so like those two guys, they don't do the sophomore slump thing. Like Dave's first solo record is very good. Resolutions, it's very good. It's a it's a sonic sort of offshoot of the Loved Ones, just that it's a solo record. This is the first one where it seems like it's really a Dave Hause solo record. And I think that that's sort of what Tim did on this record too. Like they both write a lot of songs together, especially now, but like they both kind of went for it, I
Is that what the
think.
Mermaids is?
So the Mermaid is so like Dave came up with this sort of analogy that like the band thing is like chasing a mermaid, like
Hmm.
Hmm.
especially when you're a solo artist, and like the idea of a band is always good, but the economic reality of having a touring band with your name on it is a little much in this day and age, and so it's like chasing a mermaid.
Gotcha.
But so the Mermaid, Dave and Tim write pretty much everything together, or have for a while. The Mermaid is whatever sort of band Dave is touring with. Sometimes Dave and Tim will tour together. A lot more recently, they've had a guy named Mark Maysfield, who's from Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is another Bruce Springsteen reference. Um, have like he plays keyboards and accordion sometimes. They have sort of formalized a band, I guess, and he brings them out as much as he can. Again, economically, it's not super feasible to do that. But that is so the Mermaid is like the band in
Yeah.
really whatever format. But Dave's new record, it's called Dave Hause and the Mermaid. So
Okay, gotcha.
and like it's a rock and roll record. Like
Oh,
they
cool.
base it like they recorded together, like on the floor in the studio, like wrote a lot of it together. Like it's a rock and roll record. It's good. It's like and it sort of takes that frontman thing that he is good at, and it kind of puts him back. Like he's always talked about, like he's played with bands for a long time, and he kind of wanted to have a band again.
Mm.
What better band to be in than the one that he's already in? So it's like let's instead of making a band fit a bunch of Dave Hause songs, like let's make a Dave Hause and the band record. And
Oh,
so
that's funny.
it's the first time that they recorded all together rather than having like hired guns in the studio and whatever. Like so they recorded, worked out a lot of the stuff in the studio together. So it's like it's a Dave Hause record, but it's like it's a rock and roll band record. It's great. Dave's solo career is interesting. He's navigated in a bunch of different waters. He's done like the Nashville singer songwriter thing, like leaned
Hmm.
into the Americana thing. Um, I think that he's at his best when he's a rock and roll songwriter. That being said, most as you if you've listened to Devour, most of it isn't a traditional rock and roll record. It's a dark
No,
record, but it's what he was going through. But Great Depression's a rock and roll song. We Could Be Kings is a
that's
up
a
tempo song.
yeah. You can argue we can be kings.
Same Disease is a little different. Before is dark. Father Son is a bright sounding song.
Was before
Hmm.
the one that feels like it goes through like two or different types of genres in one song. I felt like one song like kind of like not genres, but like one starts off slow and kind of jumps around a bit. Not just like the way that song like progresses, like it morphs a couple times throughout it, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one to sort of nail down. You're right. Like in terms of sound, because it kind of like it goes to a few places. Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta love some good genre blending.
Yeah, and it's tough when like it's tough to name what the genres are. I don't really know. Yeah, that's a tough one to sort of, that song in particular is a tough one to sort of nail down. But it's very much like, it's a very emotionally heavy song, I think. About like at first seems like trying to hold on to something that might be falling apart, and then coming to terms with the reality that it is falling apart, and how much you want to fight that or just let it go.
Yeah.
Becoming Secular, I think, is an interesting song. I feel like I haven't seen him play that song in a long time. I feel like a fair amount of this record, he hasn't really played an awful lot. Becoming Secular is one of those songs. It's really just him, and it's a sort of distorted guitar, but it's a slow song. Like you could see it being him in an acoustic guitar, but because it's not, because it's a plugged in electric guitar, it's like it gives it a really dark sound to it. Yeah, I love that song. I love where it fits in the record. Yeah, really, I could do a whole podcast series about this record.
These were fun records. I enjoyed them.
Good, I'm glad. And I feel like none of them are stereotypical punk rock records, but I didn't want to do that thing. Like, I know Dying Scene's a punk rock website, and I always tell people, like, if they ask, what sort of music do you listen to or whatever, I'm always like, I'm an old punk rock guy. And none of these are punk rock records, but I didn't also want to do that thing where I just like picked my 4 favorite punk records from, like, I don't know.
Thank you for listening to 4 Records. Please check us out on Instagram at 4 Records Podcast, or email us at 4recordspodcast@gmail.com. And as always, please keep up with your favorite bands at dyingscene.com.